Hello, and welcome back to KDrama Rants. My name is Melanie, and I like to rant about K-dramas. Today, we're talking about Mr. Sunshine. Some things to note: if you hear some humming in the background, that is my AC. It is in the high 90s, and that is mid to high 30s for my metric girlies. And I am a tropical girly, but it is too hot. Plus, my neighbor is not only a musician, he is a drummer. So if you hear banging or flutes or a guitar, that's him. I do not know a lot about this show going into it, other than a couple of friends told me it's worth how slow it is in the beginning. So let's see where this goes. What an intro to the show, though. It's so dramatic. It's got scenes of battles, and I already know I'm going to be looking up some history and talking about the costumes because chef's kiss. I do not have a good grasp on Korean history, so we'll see how far I can go. We open with our main character, Eugene, walking next to the New York music box, the outside of which is plastered with headlines, newspaper headlines from events which occurred in 1902 next to the assassination of Lincoln, which is odd timeline-wise, and he stands at the window looking at the music box solemnly. The man is dressed in a U.S. American military uniform and sports a pretty fresh scar on his face. He walks into Kyle Moore's office, his superior, who should be in hospital. Good news, Eugene's brave deed in the battle has gotten them recognition from Teddy Roosevelt, and he greets them at the White House. The Spanish-American War has been great for the U.S. They've netted some territories. Bro, that really needed a warning for me because you can't be talking about the annexation and continued colonization of my people like that. And now Teddy has set his sights to Joseon, which I'm pretty sure isn't quite historically accurate. The Joseon dynasty ended in the 1800s, and we're at least past the 1900s. But I guess it wouldn't be too out of the ordinary for the US to think of the Korean Empire as functionally the same until they got involved in the region. Eugene was born in Joseon, but he feels American, so he's not too jazzed about the directive to go. Honestly, so glad we get to leave the US so quickly because Roosevelt's accent was not great, Chief. We go back in time to Joseon on the 10th of July, 1871. A messenger brings tidings of U.S. ships on their soul. Emperor Kojong, who would later become king, is advised to fight these barbarians off. Kojong doesn't even get the chance to say anything edgewise, and you can tell it's because he's practically a baby boy. A couple of men elsewhere in the palace discuss the plans against the U.S. Americans, and a woman stops by to serve them. The younger of them is distracted by her, so the other suggests he take her to his new home that is in need of servants. The younger man has ambitions to serve closer to the king and flippantly states that the man who already holds that position can be dead by morning. The older man laughs and warns him that the woman who just served them is already married, so he probably should keep an eye on that. He can't just take her. And the young man does not care at all and includes the woman's husband in the list of people that he can dispose of to get what he wants. And he is overheard by her husband. So during the night, the woman and her husband try to escape slavery, but they are caught and sentenced to getting rolled up in a wicker tapestry and get beat in public, where Eugene, their son, can watch. He's come back from fetching wood in the forest where he was told that he best not be trying to get ideas above his station because he stopped to watch a bird in the sky. In a desperate attempt to help, Eugene grabs a stick and aims for the old man from earlier with the war plans. This, of course, gives the old man reason to beat the child, so Mom frees herself from the people holding her down and grabs the hairpin of one of the noblewomen present and threatens to stab her. She is pregnant. She manages to get the noblewoman to throw her child the norige, the pendant often hung on hanbok. It's usually braided in a really intricate design, and beaded with precious or semi-precious stones, and she holds her hostage until her kid can run away. Unfortunately, instead of killing Yujin's mom, which she asks for knowing damn well that nothing good could await her after threatening a noblewoman, they keep her alive for his ambitions so he can hand her over to the younger guy, but they do kill her husband. This prompts her to try to run away, and she throws herself down a well. What a childhood. The noblewoman gives birth after the whole ordeal, and they send the men to go after the child? What? They can't leave the kid alone and even make wanted posters for him trying to get their slave back. And somehow the boy evades two grown men and sustains himself by eating what he can find. And he even finds a potter who lets him eat from his stores. Poor kid tries to sell the potter the norige, but the man knows what's up and tells him to keep it. And that's when a white man stops by who's trying to buy the man's chinaware. He won't sell, though, and tells the white guy to scram and take the kid with him. And that's when the fight breaks out with the soldiers that Kojong had sent to fight the U.S. ships. The U.S. is winning. Their cannons have a lot longer reach than the Joseon dynasty, and they have a much stronger military. We see the battle play out, and a young boy is orphaned right as the U.S. can claim victory. Why was he at the battle site? I don't know, man. News of the crushing defeat gets back to Kojong, and his advisors try to paint it in a good light. Kojong is not buying it, though, and his advisors even refuse to entertain the peace offer from the U.S. On the U.S. military ship, the U.S. military's translator only sows discord between the two countries by mistranslating what the other says. The U.S. military lets go of their prisoners of war who had been abandoned by the Joseon court, much to the translator's dismay, who now wants to turn to Japan because he's like, what is this? Might. Babes, we want mites. And he wanted to kill the orphaned kid who shot him on the battlefield, leaving him limping. The prisoners of war mourn their dead, and Sungu, the orphaned kid, gets taken in by a man, the same potter who helped Yujin. His name is Unsan. And he offers him shelter until spring so he can return to his mom without perishing during the winter. And the kid disagrees with Unsan on his opinion about his father's death being righteous, and now he's dead set on destroying the country that let his dad die and turned its back on him. The man goes back to his home from the burial sites of the dead soldiers alone and scares away the men looking for Yujin. He tries to get the kid to scram, but he listens to Yujin's plight and gets the white man to take the kid with him to the U.S. in exchange for selling him some of his pottery. Truly, and I cannot stress this enough, we do not need child actors. That boy looked so pained, and I don't understand why we want to see children in pain. Like, we can just de-age children now. Not children, adults now. And, we can extend some suspension of disbelief for the story. We've done it before. We can do it again. Yujin lives as a stowaway on the ship and makes it to the Brooklyn Bridge. And I have so many questions. Did they go the long way? Why not go to California? It had already been admitted into the Union. And I guess the East Coast is still the center of the government power in the U.S. Was the Panama Canal open? I don't really know what the year is that the show is taking place, so maybe, but I'm not certain. And I don't understand why they went to New York instead of California. Anyway, it does not matter. Yujin manages to get the white guy to take him in and makes a living carrying train passengers' stuff. This is the time when he first runs into New York Music Box, where he cries remembering the way the other street kids in New York beat him up, telling him to go back to China. We see him run into his first black guy coming back from the military, so he decides that that's what he's going to do. Like, that's his way in to be an American. And he's not wrong. A lot of the U.S. racists calm down when you are a veteran. Back in Joseon, a rebel woman who has just given birth to a months-old baby gives her life to help two other rebels escape with her baby. The translator is still around and kicking and still being a piece of shit, rounding up rebels. And let me note that they are rebelling against the Japanese who have taken over Joseon. The rebels who take the baby, Eshin, take her to her grandparents' house, where her grandfather is informed that his son is dead at the hands of a snitch. Hope that snitch gets stitches. They also come with her parents' ashes. This is unrelated to anything, but in the scene, it's raining, and it made me realize that while I am a raincoat girly, I am against umbrellas, like on principle. I would not say no to an oil paper umbrella, especially if it's adorned. They are so pretty. I don't know. It didn't take long for the Japanese to take over Choson. 1894, the 31st year of Kojong's reign, slavery is abolished. So these two slave hunters, now that their market is dwindled to nothing, Ilsik and Chunsik, open a general store to do anything people will pay for. I will be probably calling these two men Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I can remember their names, but I think it's much more fun to say Tweedledee and Tweedledum. This will become important later. Just a little before the show's present, the old man who killed Yujin's family sells some of his land, much to the dismay of the people already living there. Abolish landlords, am I right? He wants the money to send his grandson to school, the baby who was born at Yujin's family's death. He has high hopes for his grandson to enlarge his family's fortune, but the grandson seems unconvinced by the idea. Ishin, now grown, keeps tabs on the political state of her country by reading contraband newspapers. Her older cousin, Esun, turns her room upside down looking for something to sell to the peddler who comes by with the newspapers, but finds the newspapers in Eshin's room instead, which she decides to take them to her grandfather, who is none too happy about this. Side note, Eshin wears a bright, vibrant yellow hanbok. It is so pretty and hard to believe that it would remain as clean as it is. If I can find a screenshot that will do it justice, I will insert it here. She is a woman, of course, and as such, she cannot take an interest in government, so her punishment is to read Confucius instead and learn some family values. Of course, her maidservant has to stick with her while she does this and make ink for her to use. By reading, they mean copy line by line the writings, word for word. I remember having to do lines as a child. It was soul-sucking. And it seems that Ishin agrees because she goes to plead with her grandfather to let her read the newspapers only once a month. And Grandpa won't let her. And he's already lost 2 children to trying to keep the country afloat, so Ishin would rather die, so her grandfather tells her to die. Ishin goes on hunger strike, and her maidservant, Miss Haman, threatens to kill herself as well if Ishin dies. Her grandfather is told of the state of affairs, but he pretends to not give a damn. However, in the cover of night, he receives a man and tells him his granddaughter's ambition. The man is here to teach Ishin how to defend herself if being a fighter is her wish. The man is Sungu, the boy who lost his father in the battle and shot the translator in the leg. I wonder if he knows that this family was also personally victimized by the translator. Sungu takes Ishin to a mountaintop where she thinks he's about to kill her. She's wearing a vibrant orange and blue hanbok, which is such a crazy choice for a hike, but I guess why would she have hiking clothing? The man reveals himself as her mentor on her grandfather's orders. He is to teach her gunnery. What a surprise for her. He orders her to stop speaking to him informally and to get dressed. She cannot be wearing fancy hanbok during training. We get a training montage. I watched that scene right after Pilates, and I felt her soreness deep in my bones. She builds her stamina, and now it's time for her to learn how to shoot. Her mentor comes back from fighting, presumably, though he will not let her know that that's what he was doing. She knows, though, and tells him that if he ever asks her to fight, she will. She knows that words are not enough to defend her country, and he agrees to let her come once she can hit all 5 of her targets during target practice, every time. 1898, Batalla del Caney, Eugene fights on the U.S. side against Spanish troops and save his superiors from certain death, so we're back in time. And this is the show of bravery that gets him the Joseon Post. Eugene is tasked with peace relations between the U.S. and Joseon. There's some white man, Logan, who's breeding fear of the U.S. in Joseon and trying to strengthen Korean-Japanese ties, so that's his target. I'm not sure that strengthening Korean-Japanese ties is a battle worth fighting right now. As Eugene packs a Japanese man, Mori Takashi, walks in to tell him to visit him in Tokyo once they're both in their respective home countries. I don't think he would agree that it's a home country, but then we get this interesting shot of Eugene walking on the Brooklyn Bridge into Korea through the Dongrimmun Gate. And the gate actually reads Munlimdok. So I have questions about why it's romanized like that and why it's written like that in Korean tourism sites. I didn't actually do a lot of research, but I am curious. Eshin comes back home where she meets someone from her past who is learning English from a foreigner for love. Unsure how learning English will get her love, but okay. Eshin has no idea what the word means, but she's not about to ask. And this is about the time when the transatlantic accent is really taking hold, so I really hope one of the actors full sends it. It's all like international or current like Hollywood English accents right now. Eugene shows to Glory Hotel where he overhears Logan, the white guy that is his target, talk about the US bringing technology to Chosun. TBH, what he's saying isn't really disparaging the US to me, but the US do be killing people strategically since forever, so checks out still. Eugene hears that Logan will be at a brothel later, and so he follows to assassinate him. However, Eshin gets there first and surprises Eugene with her hit. They both take out a couple more people, and Eugene follows her. They have a standoff trying to figure out if they're on the same side. Their faces are covered, so they can't tell who the other is. But they hear people after them, so they dash without really meeting. Elsewhere, a crowd gathers to witness the lights turning on the bridge. Electricity is new. Eugene and Eshin pass each other on the streets outside of the sniper uniform and recognize each other's scent because of the gunpowder. So they stop in the middle of the street and take a good look just as the lights turn on. They are separated by a tram and Eugene disappears. She finds him on the outskirts of the crowd gathered for the lights and refuses to acknowledge that they're both snipers. She recognizes him as a foreigner right away because of the way he dresses and the way that he doesn't recognize who she is. So, of course, all of her servants pull up right on time to give away her identity as a noblewoman. She steps into her palanquin and is carried off back home. She leaves 2 people behind to show Eugene to where he's going. However, Eugene is uninterested in dealing with them, so he just speaks English to them so that they are spooked and run away. Eugene goes back to his hotel, and they both ponder what it could mean that the other is also a sniper. And I will say, I am so glad that I chose to watch this show because the architecture is so nice to look at. It's such a good time. Eugene makes it back to the American legation wearing this like crushed black velvet top hat, and I am living for it. And he also has like an amazing coat. It has a fleece collar like on his shoulders, and it is also crushed velvet, and the buttons are so good. It's such a good time fashion wise. We do not have enough headpieces anymore. And he requests to speak with the minister stationed there. Brother does not want to be referred to as being from Chosun. That man is US American through and through. Good for him to have found a place to call home. They are holding a funeral for the Logan fellow he was going to kill. The pastor is British. Okay. And he learns that there are now 226 foreigners in Chosun, including the ones from Japan and Qing, what is now China. A Japanese gang, the Yakuza, plunders the dead guy's home looking for a document. We don't know what it is. One of the Korean servants steps outside with the white baby. I'm not sure who this baby belongs to. I assume Logan. And she meets the leader of the gang dressed in this really stylish red kimono and witnesses the gang telling him that they could not find the document. She does not understand what they're saying, and they head to the funeral. The minister of the American legation goes to Kwojong to ask that he allow U.S. American troops to be stationed in Joseon so that they can restore public order. What a U.S. American thing to say. Bringing cops around? Yeah, that sounds right. Kwojong's advisors fight over who should be bringing in forces, whether it should be Japan, the U.S., or Russia, and Kwojong is uninterested in this fight and dismisses everyone. After the funeral, Eugene asks his handler to gather all of the potential witnesses to the assassination of Logan. While he does that, Eugene visits one of the places that his child self had to traverse through during his fleeing from his enslavers. The first place that he visits is where Seung-gu lives now, I think, where he sells baeksuk, unseasoned chicken soup. Yummy. With his wife or woman he is dating. I am unsure who this woman is. Her name is Hongpa. It is down the river from where the potter who saved his life lives. Might not be river, it might just be ocean. I don't really know geographically where everything is located. Ishin debriefs Seung-gu on the assassination, and she mentions that others made a move, so it wasn't her who killed Logan. I'm unsure. I don't know who pulled the trigger that killed the man. Eugene questions the witnesses, but he's not really interested in finding out who killed the man. He knows who killed the man, so he tries to avoid mention of himself and Ishin, but the witnesses call them out, so his handler goes to fetch Ishin, and she agrees to be questioned in a couple days. And she assumes that it was Eugene, the foreigner, who called her out. Eugene then catches a scene where the owner of the hotel where he's staying, Miss Hinakuro, or Kurohina, cuts the hand of a friend of one of her guests, saving one of her servers from his grubby little hands. She goes over to Eugene to apologize for the ruckus because she caught him staring, and they have a little flirtatious moment. Good for them. The Yakuza come in as Eugene leaves and talks to Hina. The leader addresses her wound from cutting the man, and they discuss how they haven't found the document that they've been looking for. What is she into? It seems like he's running a racket, too, for the hotel. Ishin makes it to the legation and undergoes questioning. This is where she learns that he's the acting consul. Eugene tries questioning her and her servants, but they all claim to have seen nothing, so he sends the servants out with his handler so that he and Ishin could have some privacy, and they subtly confirm that they know that the other is one of the snipers. The scene is kind of hilarious, though, because the way they do it is like they slowly lift each other's hands up to cover like the bottom half of their mouths and recreate the conditions of that night. It was a hoot to see that happening. She asks him if he's part of the righteous army or if he's the righteous bandit, but he has no idea who these people are, so he just asks her if that would make them allies. I do live for an enemies to lovers. Shout out to K-pop demon hunters, but they're not even real enemies in this show, so it's just a fun layer of intrigue. I mean, they're not enemies so far. Eugene learns that she's the maknae, the youngest of the Go family, once she leaves, and that's why everyone knows who she is and tries to protect her. Her grandfather was King or Emperor Gojong's mentor and the official of integrity. Feels like an empty position because how could you really enforce that? But I like the spirit. This makes Ishin a noblewoman, and everyone loves her because she would feed everyone during the famine. And everyone in Hansong assumes that she must be ignorant of what's going on in the world because she must live a sheltered life. And during the show, they show a lot of trams in Korea, and I feel like it would have been a great way to visit the historic parts of the city. I would have loved to take one. And there's some above ground trains, but they're not trams. I do hear that they have a new tram line opening up this year, and I wish it had been open when I was there. Anyway, Ishin leaves and goes to get some sweets in Jingoge. It seems to be kind of like a Japanese neighborhood in Hansong, what is now modern-day Seoul, which honestly makes her look so young, popping one of the sweets in her mouth, and oh my gosh, she looks 14. Meanwhile, her older cousin, Esun, goes to the everything shop from Tweedledee and Tweedledum to sell one of her possessions. She's in a lot of gambling debt. And I wonder if this has been a historical problem for Korea or if they're just putting it in there because it's now a problem for them. They've outlawed it, but it's still a big problem. And I truly don't understand why the US has allowed gambling online and they're allowing gambling advertisements because most people are fine about gambling, but the people who aren't really aren't, and I don't know why they're making it easier to do. Anyway, we get some background on the Yakuza leader, Dong-me. He himself is not Japanese. I assume he just allied himself with strength. And fun fact, a lot of Yakuza members are in fact Korean, so this is accurate. And there is some misinformation going around about them being originally Korean, but I don't think that's true based on one night of research I did a year ago. And he watches Ishin eat her sweets, weirdo, He and his mom were butchers who got swindled by their customers and had chamber pot liquid thrown at them. And I've seen this a couple times in like Joseon era shows, and why would that be a thing? Like, just torture them, truly. Like, why throw poop water at them? Of course, his mom also suffered sexual abuse because, of course, and his mom threatened him to leave after she killed her abuser so that he wouldn't have to face the consequences of her actions. So now he's become the bully, gets revenge, and blames Chosun in general for his shitty childhood. I get it. I do love the way he's dressed. He is color-coded, which I love. He's the red guy. He's getting his fortune read, and the fortune is that some people shouldn't have met. I wonder to whom it refers. He also overhears a couple of men planning to sexually assault Ishin, so he jumps from a second-story balcony and slashes them where they stand. Right. She holds a special place in his heart because she saved his life when they were both children. Miss Haman does not like what he's done with his second chance at life. If only she knew what he was saving Ishin from. Eugene wonders if he should get revenge for his mom and goes to eat with his handler, who's starting to catch on to something suspicious about the assassination. He thinks that it was a foreigner who did it, and he knows that the Yakuza turned Logan's home upside down in search of something. So, of course, the gang comes around and drags him away so he can serve as an interpreter. Eugene is nonplussed by this turn of events, but he does follow them and manages to get his handler back by showing his gun against their katanas. He's curious as to where they were taking him, so they go to the Japanese neighborhood, and he asks about Tongme, their leader, and of course he pulls up. He wanted an interpreter because he wants his money for the men who died protecting Logan. They were his men. And he needs to communicate with the English speakers. And Eugene's curiosity is satisfied, so he leaves his handler behind to write the letter to Logan's widow. Tongme clearly does not want anyone to learn that he was looking for a document. Kojong is also aware of this document and is also joining in the search for it. And he's decided to let the US set up an army base. Right. So clearly this man is invested in the document, and there's something in the document that involves him. Like, that's all we know, because, like, why else would the Yakuza want it? Like, they just want the blackmail, and this man just does not want to be blackmailed. And they need to stop the Japanese empire from continuing to expand. Eugene is uninterested in reading the royal missive to allow the US to set up base in Chosun, and rides past on his horse for the Baeksuk restaurant. He wants to hire a boat to make it to the kiln site where the man who bargained for him lives, Hwang In-sun, the potter. Somehow, he runs into Ishin, who is going to see the potter herself, and he rows her boat to In-sun. And when they get there, Eugene is delighted to learn that the man hasn't aged much, but In-sun has zero recollection of him, like the child he helped out. So Eugene enjoys himself immensely making fun of the man, and the man tries to treat him civilly, but Eugene is just having too much fun, and he gets pissed off and just like walks off to one of the rooms in his home. Eugene does not leave with anything but the memories of hiding in the crates, but Ishin leaves with a bundle of pottery for target practice, and Eugene immediately figures out that that's what they're for because they're chipped, and he tries to get more information out of her while they row back to the restaurant. Eugene tells her that he did know In-sun back in the day, but the potter does not remember him, and even though she refuses to admit that she's a sniper, Eugene gives her shooting advice. He notices her norige, like the adornment that hangs from hanbok and from the noblewoman, and he asks her how much one of them would have cost 30 years ago, which is when his mom gave him the noblewoman's. And he realizes that his mom thought it was worth much less than what it really was. And it was a journey to figure out whether that was the case or if it was the other way around, because they don't explain the difference between a big bag of rice and a mal of rice, because the mom said that it was 3 mals of rice, but in the captions it says Like Ishin says, one bag of rice, like one big bag of rice. So I had to like listen very closely because there's no Korean caption, so I couldn't just Google that. She said like han gamani of rice. And so like I had to look it up in Korean because there was no information in English. It was a whole thing, okay? When Ishin realizes that she cannot ask questions without answering some of his, she finally admits that she found romance in the night that they met while sniping, but like in a romanticism way, not in the melodrama way. She's happy to have found a comrade. And I don't think she's feeling the romantic connection yet, but Eugene looks like he is, which checks out to me. I feel like men fall faster and harder. We get an interlude of an older couple who are trying to get their son to return to Joseon from Japan to marry him off to Ishin. The couple is the noble couple from the scene where Eugene's parents died. The woman has the scar on her neck from when Eugene's mom threatened to kill her, and the son is not interested as he has found a woman in Japan, but he must return home because familial duties. I would never marry someone that my mother would pick for me, but there are some things that I would just do for her, regardless of whether she even asked. So I kind of get it. Ishin picks up a dress she seems to need for her reunion with this man, and she learns that her cousin, Esun, has commissioned a pair of Western shoes. She had put it on Ishin's tab without her knowledge, but Ishin agrees to pay and commissions the same pair for herself, and she will fetch them from the main store in Temulpo. She's taking the train and taking her servants with her. Miss Haman is so excited that she leaves the shop to get new clothes for herself. And when she heads outside, she finds Hengrang, the male servant, and we see that he has a little thing for her because he tells her, like, I've been saving money to buy you stuff. And she's like, why would you do that? It's very cute. And there's a little bit of a social class critique going on because see how this woman had to leave the store where her employer was purchasing clothing because she can't afford the clothing at the store? Crazy. I can't even imagine that happening right now. Good thing we can't relate. While Ishin gets her feet measured for new shoes, Eugene comes out of the back, dressed in a suit that's getting tailored. She's happy to learn that he's getting fitted because he's staying in Chosun for a while. And she dares ask him what the word love means. She heard it from the woman who was learning English when she came back from training, and she still has no idea what it means. And they have a little misunderstanding because she assumed that when the woman had said that it was better than getting a title, she assumed that it meant power, that it would get her more power. But Eugene had only heard from her that it was better than a title and tells her that it's kind of true, but she couldn't do it alone. So she invites him to do it with her. And I'm giggle-gaggling, kicking up my feet because that is so cute. She has no idea that she's asking him to love her. She still doesn't know what it means and tells him that she wants to do whatever it is with him because he's her comrade. And Eugene sets her straight real quick. He does not care for Joseon, okay? He only wanted that guy dead because he dishonored the US. And she is shook. Ishin gets to the station for the Temulpo train where there are foreigners galore. She's wearing this kind of conductor-looking hat with a train and a fur trim. It's navy blue and it's high fashion. I think it's called an ayam in Korean. She walks through the general boarding car on her way to her car, and everyone who knows her bows to her and offers their seats. Once she gets to her car, some Japanese soldiers threaten her with a rifle, and one of them offers her the rifle. I don't know. She takes it happily and points it at him, threatening him now, and Sungu springs up from nowhere and yoinks it out of her hands. She tries to go after him, but she is stopped by some US soldiers who enter the car. So now she is way more concerned about why there are US soldiers in her country. They get to Temulpo, where the US soldiers are trying to search everyone for a rifle that went missing on the train. I'm not sure if it's on the way to Temulpo or on the way back to Hansang. Doesn't really matter. Eugene is obviously already there, outfitted in his Navy uniform. He explains that they're looking to search her skirts, and she is furious to learn that actually he's a military guy and probably used Logan's death as an excuse to bring troops into Choson. For some reason, Hina, the owner of the hotel where Eugene is staying, stops at the scene and offers to exchange clothing with Ishin. Her skirt is much more form-fitting. It has the Edwardian silhouette, so she can't hide anything under that. I mean, she sure could, but okay, it's important for the plot. She takes her up on her offer, and Ishin changes in the carriage, and we learn that Hina inherited the hotel from her dead husband. She'd been married off for money. Eugene steps into the carriage once everyone's dressed, and he tells Ishin in no uncertain terms that their goals aligned only for a brief moment of time, but they have no business knowing each other. Right, sure. Yeah, I believe you. Ishin goes back to Hansong, and we don't see her getting her shoes. Quite annoying for me personally, because I really wanted to see them. On their way home, her and her palanquin, Hengrang, saves Miss Haman from a speeding carriage, and now I'm rooting for these two because I need someone to root for right now. And even though Haman is ungrateful. Eugene is back at the hotel sitting with all new US soldiers in the dining room, and one of Hina's maids comments to Hina how she must like foreigners because she's staring at them. But Hina's like, it's not just any foreigner, it's Eugene. He's caught her eye. But she knows that that man is not sparing a glance for anyone other than Ishin, so Hina is jealous. She's about to put Eugene in trouble because I don't think Dongme, the Yakuza leader, is someone who experienced compersion. Though I'm not sure I'm supposed to think that Dongme is into Hina. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that's about. Eugene and Kyle, the guy from the beginning, like his superior, step outside of the hotel and talk about whether Eugene means to get some revenge on the noble people that killed his parents. Side note, I think we're supposed to believe that Kyle is a white US American man. That's a Asian, okay? That man has some Asian in him. I assume Korean because, of course, and I really wonder why they wouldn't just go for a non-Asian bestie in the military for Eugene. Like, moreover, I think a black man would have made more sense to me because Eugene is so anti-Korea. Like, why? Why would they make this choice? Please let me know. Why do you think they would make this choice? Ishin goes back to train with Sungu, and she is also jealous of Hina. I mean, he's a little too old and a little too cop for my personal tastes, but I can see it. And it turns out that it was Sungu who took the American rifle. We don't know what his plans are because he won't tell Ishin to keep her safe. Finally, Ishin goes to the English school. She wants to be able to read her own name. She has to do it in secret though because it's a school for lowborns. Kyle goes around the city making out-of-pocket remarks all over the place. And I just cannot get over it. Like, that man is wearing blue contacts. That man has some Asian in him. Why are we doing all this? Like, he's seen an Asian before. I'm pretty sure his mom is one. Or his dad. You know, somebody. Ishin is tasked by her aunt to go fetch Esun, who's gambling all her money away on a card game at the hotel. And she misses her cousin, but runs into Hina, who makes her own hotel sound like it's full of unsavory business for noble women, drinking, gambling, sex. I mean, it just sounds like a fun time to me. So, of course, she also has to run into Eugene on her way out, and he tries to justify him staying there after what Hina said, but she dismisses him. She doesn't really care. Ishin finds her palanquin blocked by Dongme, the Yakuza leader, so of course, Hina draws Eugene's attention to it to make it seem like they're involved somehow, so that Eugene gives up on Ishin. I don't really know why Dongme did all that, but Ishin clears the air. She does not look at him sideways because he's a butcher and has slaughtered people. She looks at him sideways because he's a traitor to Chosun. Seems like Hina is also convinced that Dongme is interested in Ishin. Maybe you just have low self-esteem, babe, because you're hot, okay? Like, Ishin is cute, but you're hot. I mean, Ishin will definitely have to pick among the three men that are options for her, like the man that she's set to marry, Eugene, and Dongme, but I mean, they could all be into her too. When Eugene gets to his room, he finds it turned upside down. So he assumes that the Yakuza has broken in looking for something. Turns out it's not Yakuza when he confronts them. So now who else would want to look through his stuff? Is it the Righteous Rebel Army? I'm not gonna lie, I really fuck with Dongmae. He is a gentle monster. In real life, I would never go for someone like that because what the fuck, that's crazy. But it's nice in TV. Like, you're really gonna kill somebody for me? That's so nice. He gets himself some sweets and it triggers another flashback to the day that Ishin took him in. She showed him kindness and he threw that all back in her face and called her a fool. Back at the legation, Eugene is still hard at work trying to find the gun that was taken from the US Army on the train. He cited all the witnesses from the train and is looking for testimony of someone who left the train before it departed. They are correct that it would be the case that that's who would take the gun. A couple on the train remembered the scene with Ishin pointing a gun at a Japanese soldier, and they remember that the man who yoinked the gun fled. He didn't take the Japanese gun, he just removed it from Ishin's hand, but they get a sketch artist and the witnesses help create the likeness to find the man who fled. Uh-oh. They also have to call in Ishin because she was there. So she pulls up and they dance around the issue. He knows, she knows where the gun is, but she will not betray that information until she figures out what Eugene wants. He asks whether she knows why his room was searched, and she really truly has no idea what the plan is. So she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he shows her the drawing of the man from the train, and it turns out that the people that witness it, instead of describing Sungu, they describe the Japanese soldier so that they could protect Ishin. I love that for them. I love that for her. I love that for everybody. The translator from the beginning of the show did in fact go to Japan and is now tasked by some Japanese royal, a leader, unsure, they don't give us a title, to give something to Emperor Kojong to remind him of his wife's death. He wants Kojong to suffer until he can take over Korea. What the f***? In the streets of Hangsong, the Japanese soldier that got drawn from testimony runs into the child servant of the Logan family, and she frantically apologizes to him, but they surround her, so her brother runs for help and finds Eugene. Eugene does not want to get into this fight, but the kid reminds him of himself when he needed help, so he backs the kid up. The kid hits one of the soldiers on the head with a rock, and the soldier lets go of the money he ripped out of the girl's hands. Remember, kids, we don't hit people in the head unless we want to murder them, okay? Head trauma is death trauma. It's Eugene's turn now to fight the soldiers, and he makes quick work of them. Him and Kyle leave the children, telling the boy that he has to stand up for himself. I'm sure we will not hark back to this ever again. Eugene catches the nobleman An Pyong, the nobleman husband of the pregnant woman whose life Eugene's mom threatened when he was a child. He didn't think he'd be able to recognize them, but now he wants revenge. An Pyong's son has arrived in Chosun, and his first words out of his mouth were Chosun nemse, like the smell of Chosun in the most derogatory way. It had me howling. Apparently, the Glory Hotel used to be his grandfather's residence, so he goes there first instead of going to his parents. He's put up in the room next to Eugene. Brother is a player because the first thing he does is try to flirt with Hina. He goes up to his room and steps out into the balcony. He tries to introduce himself to Eugene, but obviously Eugene is uninterested in this man and walks back inside. Kim Il-sung is nonplussed and goes downstairs to play cards while Eugene ruminates on his past. He's literally just sitting on his bed, like staring out the window, thinking about the bad things that's happened to him. Babe. Not to take away from what his family has done, but Kim Il-sung's smile is so good. I'm such a sucker for his nice smile. It's truly a problem, okay? Next day, Eugene goes to the everything store from Tweedledee and Tweedledum to ask them to track down the Kim family, the people who killed his family. And he pays them $20 to learn that they're still kicking and ripping farmers off their land. And he also learns that they are the same slave hunters that were after him back in the day, and they didn't fail to catch him. They actually let him go because they couldn't follow through with it because he was so scared when he was a kid. They don't put it together, though, that he was the kid that they let go. He sung, the loser that he is, makes a bouquet of flowers, of wild flowers, to give to Eshin, a noblewoman, when he visits her, because he blew all his money last night gambling, and he is welcomed with open arms. Meanwhile, Eugene goes to his parents' home and returns the norige, the adornment on the pregnant lady, and she falls to the floor like she's seen a ghost. And he has only one question for them. Did you at least bury my parents? Girl, I don't have an answer for you. I'll give it to you next time with part 2 of Mr. Sunshine. As always, rate and follow the podcast. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Bluesky, at Koreandramarants. And I'll talk to you next time with part 2 of Mr. Sunshine. Bye.